the Auburn game. Auburn knocks off, like I said, Mississippi State, a 22-point win. Janai Broome's out indefinitely with an ankle injury. Chad Baker-Mazara, man, 20 points on 8 of 11
Yeah.
shooting. All of them are studs.
Yeah, he came out on fire too, which was
Yeah.
kind of, it's like, that South Carolina game, because when Janai went down, I mean, they really like just completely lost all their momentum. They came back in that game too, because that was one of those games where they started slow and then they got it back, but then Janai got hurt. So I was like kind of curious, what type of atmosphere are we going to get from these guys? Because again, I mean, Auburn is by far the best team in my opinion, with Duke really, really catching up to them, and obviously Duke has the win over them, but I don't know. I'm just impressed by Auburn, just because like they play 40 minutes of like all out, like they really go at each other the whole game. Even on a plane ride earlier this year, they kind of were going at each other. That's just how like dialed in they are. Like they're a different breed of a team. So
Yeah.
it was cool to like see them just right out of the gate assert the dominance. And yeah, they definitely, they've got some really good guards. Like all their guards are really good. Definitely different from like even past year's teams. Because like that was like the thing with Auburn is like, are their guards going to cost them in March, or are they going to, they're going to shoot their way out of a game or something like that? But, like Chad's been awesome. Miles Kelly, who transferred from Georgia Tech's been really good. I mean, he had 13 points. Denver Jones also had 13 points. And then obviously Tahad Pettiford. I mean, he's been really, really good as a freshman.
Yeah.
And
Todd, go ahead.
yeah, I was just saying, like all their guards like average 10 points, so it was just cool to see them play without Janai, who kind of like orchestrates everything. Because that's kind of like how Cooper is too. Because like Cooper kind of orchestrates everything with Duke, so it was like kind of cool to see them be able to play without him.
Yeah, absolutely. I was going to say Tahad Pettiford's one of my favorite players in the country. Like, watch if Auburn's on, it's like NBA League Pass. Like, people love to watch LaMelo Ball with the
Yeah,
Hornets, even though the Hornets are a different story. That's how Tahad Pettiford is with me. If I see Auburn on, I cannot wait to watch him in the game because he only played 20 minutes last night or 21 minutes. He had
yeah,
12 points and 4 steals and 3 assists. Like, that dude is electric factory for Auburn. And I agree with you. Again, I am a Duke fan, but I agree with you. Auburn's the number one team in the country. I know Duke did beat Auburn at Duke, but the way this team is just rolling through right now. I mean, like you talked about the plane ride. That seems so far long ago, and you would have thought that was going to derail a season.
that's how I felt when that happened. I'm like,
Yeah,
I,
but
I I'm not gonna lie, like that's what I thought was gonna happen, and then they go in and beat Houston, who I mean, like that's the consistency of success when it comes to like regular season basketball. It's Houston, so it's like they went in, beat them, and then they go to Maui and just beat everybody. So it was like, and I mean, they're beating like good teams like Iowa State, and like not just good teams. These are teams that are like super locked in, so you can't just like go out there and necessarily like they're gonna bring their A game, So it was
yeah,
that's the cool thing about what Auburn has done is they've definitely impressed me when it comes to like who they've beaten, and like yeah, like that's kind of what I'm getting across, because like Iowa State and Houston are very similar when it comes to like same style of basketball, and they beat both those teams. So
yeah, the camaraderie that fight brought within the team. I mean, look, people that have followed my other podcasts for the Duke oriented podcast, the Big J Lil J show, they've heard this story. But when I played in college, Division III level, we had two teammates fight in the locker room after a loss, like fist fight, throw a locker room chair at each other. We had next game 48 hours, and that was our best win of the season. Because sometimes you just need to let out some aggression. It's not advised. I'll tell you that much. But
yeah,
it happens in locker rooms, and
sure.
obviously it happened on a plane ride for Auburn. But you talk about the Iowa State game, like they're number 2 in the country, and they were down 16 to them at halftime in Maui or something like that, close to 20, and come back and win. And like I said, this team is just fun to watch. Bruce Pearl, he always coaches up his guys, and I love what I see from Auburn, and what a statement win by them against Mississippi State without Janai Broome.
Yeah, I mean it was a statement, and I honestly wasn't expecting that, but it's just hard. That's a hard place to play. Auburn, like they like that place was wildly loud. So
Yeah,
it's like they kind of just capitalize on the momentum. We'll see when Janai comes back, because thankfully he's gonna come back, because I mean that was like a scary moment. Because I am like I got into a whole spat on Twitter. It's like, who's the national player of the year? I was kind of siding with Cooper Flag just because like I believed the ACC was so bad that I thought that like he'd be able to kind of play into that and help his campaign. But like Janai, I mean it's like a neck and neck race. Like you can't really go wrong with either of these guys. Like
Yeah.
he just does everything so well for them. I would have hated to see him miss one the season, but two even like a long period of time. I think that he'll be back sooner rather than later, so that's good. But that was definitely a statement. So good win for them.
So, last question with Auburn. The popular question for Duke is, can they go undefeated in the ACC play? I have the same question for you about Auburn. Can they go undefeated in the SEC? I know the SEC is a gauntlet, but the way they are just winning these games, and again, no Janai Broom, so that's going to limit them. But with a good Janai, with a healthy Janai Broom, you could run the table, but I know the SEC is a gauntlet, and we saw, as we're going to talk about, Missouri is unranked, went into Florida, knocked them off. But what are your thoughts that maybe there's a slim chance that Auburn can run the table?
No, sure. I mean, I've compared this Auburn team, like they kind of remind me of like just how locked in they are to like a 2021 Baylor, just because like they got like so many guards, but they like kind of they play super hard. I don't think that they're gonna. I don't think they will go undefeated just because it's so hard. I mean, you are posing like a decent question though, because it's like, well, they've beaten everybody like and competed with everybody in the top of the sport, so it's like, why can't they? Um, but like, I think they have to go to Kentucky for
Yeah.
sure. That's a tough one. They have to go. They play Alabama twice, and then like I think they have Florida, but that's at home. Um, so I mean, like, sure, could they? I think that the Duke one would be more probable. So
Correct. Yes. I just wanted to get your take on that because
sure,
I was like, this team is a wagon, but that's where you
I'll
get caught
I'll
up
say
in.
no on that. I'll just say no.
Yeah, I agree with you. I say no as well. So people that are watching this, don't lose your minds that I really think they can go undefeated. But it's a fun question to ask because I
Sure,
keep
yeah,
seeing about Duke at every halftime report. So I'm like, you know what? What about the number one team in the country that only lost to Duke, who's running the table in the SEC?
yeah,
But you
that's fair.
talk about Alabama as a future opponent for them. They lost at home against Ole Miss
Yeah.
74-64. What are your thoughts on Alabama so far this season?
Yeah, Alabama has been really good. It's just like Grant Nelson, as of recently, hasn't been playing that great for them. Like his past 3 games, he's had he's had 6 points, 6 points, and 9 points. So like, just as a quick glance, they need Grant Nelson to be like their number two with Spears. So it's like or Sears. So it's like that's kind of like been hemorrhaging them a little bit because it's like Ole Miss like that's a tough basketball team. I don't necessarily think like Ole Miss is like a Final Four team by any means, but they're just so old. Like they've got like a super old backcourt, and they play super hard. So it's like they're just going to be a tough out every night against whoever they play. And they just kind of trapped Alabama, and like they didn't let Alabama play their style of basketball, where it's like they want to fly up and down the court, shoot a bunch of threes. That's kind of how they run their stuff. And it's like, and getting in like a 60-point game, that's just hard to squeak out night in and night out for like
Yeah.
Alabama because that's just not how they play.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. In the first episode of College Basketball Addiction, I had Alabama right outside my top five at the time, about a week ago today on recording. And my main concern was who's going to step up when Mark Sears has an off night because in the losses for Alabama, Mark Sears has struggled and nobody has stepped up. And last night, he was 2 of 11 against Ole Miss. And like you said, Grant Nelson has to be that guy to, hey,
Yeah,
Sears has an off night. Nelson step up. And somehow my Siri just came up on my laptop there. But
it's all good.
I know there's a saying that I've heard is like I know that they're 10 deep. That's like the main attraction with Auburn. They're 9 to 10 deep. But sometimes when you're 9 or 10 deep, you don't have five, if that makes sense. Like you don't
Yeah,
have a true five players that you can put out there because you're like, well, I have 9 or 10. And when you have that many options, you don't really have one option. And so
I agree.
that's where I'm hesitant with Alabama.
Yeah, that is like such a like debate within college basketball. It's like, would you rather have a really deep team, or would you rather have like a really solid starting five with like two good rotation guys? So it's like, that's the trap that like an Alabama falls into, which is like, I I I, I think Alabama I would fade this year. Like if I'm gonna have to like actually stick to an opinion, I think that this would be a year I would kind of fade them. Like
That That's
as that,
perfect because that was going to be the next question is like, where do you see Alabama making a run in March? But you're
yeah.
fading them, and I can see where you're coming from with that.
I just don't necessarily love that style of basketball when it comes to like March.
Yeah.
And it's like I don't know if they like Cliff Amore's really good, but it's like I don't know I'm just not bought into them. Like I maybe I just need to see him play more because again, like the SEC play is just such a gauntlet that like we're gonna see them play at the top of the sport for the rest of the season. Maybe I do fall in love with them a little bit more than I have, but it's like I don't know. And just watching like other teams, I feel like even like the top of the Big Ten, which is something I want to talk about. It's just like watching those guards. They just seem more locked in than their backcourt. Like I don't
Yeah.
think I would take their backcourt over some of the teams at the top of the Big Ten, like Purdue or Michigan State or Illinois. So it's like I think they'd be one I'd fade.
I tell you what, Cohen Carr, I cannot wait to watch him in March. He's going to have a poster dunk in the first weekend of March, or they're going to make a run to the Sweet 16. It's because he's going to put somebody on a poster. Like that guy has March Madness written all over him.
Oh yeah, he's gonna have some moments where everybody's just like, "Whoa."